Hello everybody, welcome back to the Software Architecture vlog series where we speak about all things software architecture. I'm your host Tengiz. I'm a software architect with the experience in application, solution and enterprise architecture fields. I also wrote a book recently. It's called Effective Software Development for Enterprise. This is a book about engineering excellence, software architecture and leadership best practices, so I encourage you to go and check it out. Today's topic is switching between technology stacks or tech stacks, and the question of the day is how will this decision impact your career? This is a relevant and common question that developers and architects ask themselves, and this is an important decision that you have to make. Based on what I have observed, there are three large groups of professionals that are trying to solve the puzzles that I mentioned. The first group are those who are just starting your career. Obviously, in the beginning of your career, you're trying to choose what's best for you now. However, what's more important is what will be best for you long run. I think you should be focusing on your long-term career path and plans and thinking about where you want to be in 5 or 10 years from now and make the decision based on that. Since making a choice in earlier stages of your career is simpler, I will perhaps leave this topic out of the scope for now and focus on two other groups. The second group of individuals are those who are not happy with what they get with their currently used tech stack. Specifically, in some cases, people are not getting good enough compensation, while in other cases, they don't like the job opportunities that they receive while they stick to their tech stack. I will try to address this question later in this episode. And finally, there is a third group of professionals, which is more relevant to more senior and expert level engineers and architects, and this is the group who are more or less happy with what they get, their compensation or the kinds of job opportunities, but they want to switch these stacks to get into another kind of industry or another kind of companies, such as, for instance, FAANG companies, Facebook or Google kind of companies, who are using different kind of tech stack than you do. I personally am in this group. My entire career was focused on using Microsoft and .NET stack, and obviously Facebook and Google kind of companies are using different kind of stacks. They are using more PHP, Java, Python stack, and I was often asking myself whether I should be switching the tech stacks to get into those companies and improve my career and experience. So did I switch my stacks? No, I did not. I decided not to go to FAANG companies, and I have reason for that. Let's speak about this first and then go to the rest of the topic. I was approached by FAANG companies a couple of times and I pushed brakes in all cases. First, I was getting good enough compensation with my tech stack as well, which actually proves that it is possible to be highly compensated regardless of what stack you use. The paths are different based on the stack sometimes, or based on where you live or what you do, but there is still always ways, so I will discuss that part later. Additionally, FAANG companies are located in areas where cost of living is higher than where I used to live. So for me to switch and get higher compensation did not necessarily mean that I would be making or saving more money. And finally, I also do not like to be a master of all trades. I really like to focus on a few things and be very good at those. I enjoy that kind of professionalism. So that also impacted my decision not to switch. Now let's come back to the more interesting question. How did I maximize my income, and what would I recommend to you to maximize your profit based on your current stack instead of switching the stacks? In other words, I'm telling you a plan B, maybe which you have not considered so far, and maybe it will help you to progress your career without switching the stacks. Start with focusing on your career path. Where do you want to be in 5 or 10 years, and how does this path look? Is it absolutely necessary to have a certain tech stack experience to get to where you want to be in 5 or 10 years? Or maybe this is really not that important. I personally discovered that for my career path to be where I wanted to be, switching the tech stack was not that important, and maybe it is the case for you as well, so maybe you do not want to switch. Once you determine your career path, for instance, you are today on A level and you want to be on the F level, for instance, and there are a couple of staircase steps between those, you need to focus on the growth. You need to set for yourself a plan, how you're going to move from those steps from A to F, so that you are continually growing and getting to the goal where you want to be. If you recognize that you are growing all the time and you are making steps toward the finish line, perhaps it's not necessary to switch yet. Maybe it's still early. If you determine at any point that you are hitting this ceiling and you cannot go any more upward, maybe that's when you need to consider looking at other options. But before then, while you are growing, maybe it's early to switch. Let's speak a little bit about growth, because I suggested to you that you need to keep growing in your current tech stack, and only after that you need to consider switching. So what are those actions that you can take today to continue growing? So I would suggest 2 things. First, start reading books that define the industry. It is one thing to go online and Google for answers on the Stack Overflow or other websites, or start reading some short articles, or even watch videos like this. But it's completely different conversation when you go and read the entire book by somebody who defines the industry. And try to read the books that set the bar higher than when you are. For instance, I personally always read books that were written for professionals, although sometimes I was a dummy in that field. But what that forced me is, it made me realize that the industry's maximum is somewhere else, and I still have something to learn to grow toward the maximum possibilities. And that is exactly what I'm suggesting to you now. And while reading those books and learning about the tech stacks that you use and the concepts that are around those tech stacks, you perhaps will determine what you're good at, what you really enjoy. That will be the niche that you need to focus on and become excellent in that area. For instance, I know a couple of people who are focused on performance or security or design patterns or architecture or storages and so on. You need to find your niche. What is it that you are going to be good at? And you need to focus on that more and increase your skill set in that area. These 2 actions will help you become the best in one thing that you are passionate about, and believe me, that will help you maximize your income and improve the quality of the job opportunities that you will get in that direction. And as you progress toward your finish line and move upward your career staircase, it becomes less and less relevant which exact tech stack you use, and perhaps you will start noticing that switching earlier would not be as wise of a decision, because it becomes less and less relevant as you move upper and upper in your career staircase. However, a lot of people still switch the tech stacks, and I want to discuss a couple of impacts that it makes on your career. First, you are not going to be senior in the new tech stack on day one. You will be somewhere between junior and mid-level, depending on where you were in your previous tech stack. And you will need to ramp up in the new tech stack. It takes time, depending on the level where you want to get to. And while you ramp up in the new tech stack, guess what happens to your previous tech stack? You start forgetting it, and you lose your qualification level in your old tech stack. Let's do a little math about how long it takes to ramp up in a new tech stack after you switch. Suppose you are a junior or a beginner in one tech stack and you are switching to another one, from my experience, it will take you less than 1 year to ramp up to the same level where you were before in the previous tech stack. So it is not so high of a risk for you. For mid-level developers and engineers, it will take 2 or 3 years. And the highest risk is the third group, senior or expert level engineers, because for them it will take up to 5 years to get to the same senior or expert level in the new tech stack. And during this time, you need to understand what happens to your growth plans. If you had a growth curve in your mind that you would be always going up and up and up, and if you switch the tech stacks, perhaps you're not going up anymore. You're trying to get where you were before instead of continuing to grow up. So you're growing horizontally rather than vertically. So if this is important for you to keep growing vertically, perhaps switching just hinders that plan. I know that everything I said earlier sounded like you should not switch between technology stacks, and I personally think that you should not in most cases. However, sometimes it makes sense to switch. Maybe you indeed want to make more compensation, and maybe that's the only way, or maybe you really love Google or Facebook and it is worth for you to make the switch. In this case, go for it. However, in this episode, I wanted to focus on the impacts that the switch will make for you, and it's important to speak about them as well, because otherwise, when you make a switch, it might be too late to go back. Now, since you are watching Software Architecture vlog series, and this is all things about software architecture, I want to look at the switching tech stacks from the software architecture standpoint. Interestingly, for most of the software architecture types, tech stacks do not really matter. So let's look at them one by one. For application architects, tech stacks do matter somewhat because you need to guide the developers throughout implementation. So perhaps you need to stick to the single stack for that reason. Otherwise, you will have to be senior or expert in a new tech stack to be able to become a tech lead or a hands-on application architect to guide the development teams. For solution architects, skills are really transferable across tech stacks. For instance, concepts such as relational database or the OOP stay the same regardless of the programming language or the storage technology you pick. So the tech stacks do not really matter for solution architects. And for enterprise architects, tech stacks matter even less because for them, only thing that matters is to analyze and understand what kinds of technologies the company uses currently and what is the purpose they serve. For instance, an enterprise architect might be interested in the storage technology just to document that the company is using Microsoft SQL Server or the Oracle database and that they serve the relational database purpose. And that ends the topic. I think I was able to answer the question of the day about how the switching between technology stacks impacts your career, and I hope now you can make more informed decisions about switching or not switching between the technology stacks and improving your career path. However, if I missed anything, please leave your comment below and I will respond to it. I will put a link to the related blog post in the description of this video, so please make sure to go and read that as well before you make this important decision. If you liked the video, if I was able to help you in making this important decision and going the right direction in your career, please click thumbs up so that I can help others as well. Also, consider subscribing so that you start receiving notifications about other similar videos that I post in the future. I am always looking for suggestions about the future topics that I will be discussing here in this series, so please suggest to me something and I will think about it. And finally, check out my book where I speak about a lot of important things related to the software development industry It's called Effective Software Development for Enterprise. It is about software development, architecture, and many other related areas. Thank you for watching and see you next time. Bye bye.